Hey everybody, Chris Turk with Up North Air Gunner. So today on my channel we're going to be starting a new series where I'm going to be doing some head-to-head comparisons between the FX Impact M3 and Precision 22 long rifle. So when we launched the Impact last year, you heard me talk a little bit about how this was pretty exciting to me, where, you know, with the 700mm barrel and we're being able to shoot heavier for caliber slugs and 22 and all the other calibers, up to higher powers and at a regulated pressure and having that consistency shot to shot, which is really bringing us really close to both the power levels and the precision of precision level 22 long rifles. So in my previous testing, you've seen I've taken some of the 34 grain slugs up over 1,000 feet per second. So we're almost there, but not quite there yet. But as you've seen, like on Matt Dubber's channel, showing off the new 800mm barrels that are going to be coming out pretty soon. With that extra barrel length, we're going to be picking up velocity, which is going to take us up to and even exceeding some of the subsonic precision ammunition that 22 LR uses. So when you look at the SK match, you look at Lapua, you look at Ely. So a lot of that ammunition is in the 1,050 to 1,080 feet per second, depending on barrel length. During this discovery process that I've been going through, first off, I needed to go out and purchase a 22 LR. I did a lot of homework on this, but one of my goals in this project was I also wanted to purchase a 22 LR. So if I did want to compete in NRL 22 in the base class, that I could do so with the gun that I purchased. All right, so we're gonna pull the trigger on this one, both literally and figuratively. We're going with the CZ457 Pro Varmint. And this has got the suppressor ready heavy 16-inch barrel. Pairing it with an Element Optics 6-24 by 50. And these two things out the door keeps you below that $1,200 price point that you need for NRL 22 for the base class. Right there is the beginning of something pretty awesome. So as we get started with this series, I want to just kind of use today to talk about some of the adjustability there and the similarities and the differences as we compare the two, because as we go through this series, we always want to have that baseline kind of area or that baseline variable to try to find those equivalencies. They're not always going to be the same, but we're always going to, as we kind of push things out for accuracy and precision, I want to be able to draw parallels between things, ammunition, velocities, triggers, the mechanical operations of each. So let's check it out. Okay, so this is the CZ457. Again, bone stock, have not done anything mechanically to any of it. The only thing that I have done is it came with two swivel studs here for a sling mount, and I popped those out and I actually installed and bolted on a Picatinny rail here, and this is a Magpul rail. So on the rear here, there is a swivel for a sling, and what I did is I'm actually using an AccuShot monopod that's specifically made for rifles that have a sling stud there. And so, yep, in the front here, I'm running the Atlas bipod, and this is the Cal 2. So one of the things that I did do, I'm running the new Element Optics AccuLite rings, and these things are pretty sweet. So one of the things I was super excited about is being able to run some medium rings with this to bring that scope down closer to the bore. And so what's interesting is the way this bolt action works is this is actually a change from previous versions where they had a 90-degree throw. This is a 60-degree throw. And as I was doing research about this, a lot of people are using dovetail to Picatinny risers here. And I wanted to be able to use the stock without having to add any kind of riser here on the back. And so being able to run these medium rings from Element Optics just keeps everything nice, tight, and low to the bore. So yeah, that's where we're at with the 457. So real quick, let's look at the FX Impact M3. So one of the other upgrades that I did here is this digital gauge for my regulated pressure. And what I love about this is having that precision to know, like, right down to how many bar I've got shot to shot. That's pretty darn critical. So again, what I love about this is I've got this angle here. I can see it from my shooting position, especially shooting bench. So really love that thing. A huge shout out to SPA, Southern Precision Air Weapons with Ken Hicks. He got these for me during RMAC, and these are super helpful. So we've got the Saber Tactical extended rail here, and we've got an Atlas bipod, Super Cal on this thing. The other kind of upgrade that I'm super excited about. You've seen a lot of this going on in social media right now. People are starting to add the 700cc 300 bar bottles and shooting it at such a high regulated pressure, pushing these heavy for caliber slugs as hard and as fast as they'll possibly go. You're not getting a lot of shots off of this 580cc bottle at 250 bars. So I will be swapping that out as soon as possible. So that's where we're at with the FX Impact M3. Holding crazy good groups. Been able to do a ton of stuff with this barrel tuner. So what's awesome about this journey is I actually got a chance to reach out to Josh at Pursuit of Accuracy, who has a YouTube channel. And he was super helpful, talked me through the differences of like how to choose your ammo, the fact that you're actually, once you find ammunition that your 22 LR likes, you actually then need to find out what lot that came from. And when you find that ammo, you better go buy as much of that ammunition as you possibly can from that lot, or you're gonna be back to square one trying to figure it out with different ammunition types. So the other thing that I've done in my discovery research process on this is how velocities change with 22 LR as compared to air guns. What's quite interesting is if you think about it, all of that energy or potential energy is stored within the actual cartridge of the 22 LR.
And when all the energy is being released almost instantaneously through the explosion of the powder, through the striking of the primer in the 22 LR cartridge, the projectile's lock time within the barrel is significantly faster than what it is with an air gun. So with our shot cycle, it's much longer. We have much lower chamber pressures. Your preloaded hammer, which is preloaded with a spring, hits the valve face. The valve opens up, releases air up through your transfer port, and expels a projectile down your barrel.
All right, so let's talk about ammunition here real quick and to draw some equivalencies. We've got some Lapua Midas Plus here. This is considered a precision, high-level match-grade ammunition. And we also have the Javelin. These are the 34 grains, and I also have some 40 grains here. So that's a 34 Javelin, that's a 40 grain Javelin, and then that's a 40 grain Lapua Midas Plus. So you're gonna definitely see the price difference there between those two ammunition types. And with this, talk about standard deviations and extreme spreads. With 22 LR, it is all about the powder burn, right? So getting that consistent powder burn shot to shot. Now with air guns, we have full control of all of that right here. So what I like to talk about when I talk about tuning, and this is just my way of describing it. Everybody has their own way of kind of describing this. But all of this right here is equivalent to as if you could reload these. So if you think about like center fire, when you're looking at different primers, different amounts of powder, and all the different things they do in reloading in the center fire world, we are doing all of that just right here. And we're able to do it on the fly. We don't have to go back to a bench and work up a different load. With 22 long rifle, you kind of get what you get.
So in order to do as much testing as possible to keep everything as equal as possible, in 22 LR precision ammunition, those are 40 grains, shooting subsonic. And luckily I was able to go out to FX USA in North Carolina and do some 100-yard testing in their indoor range with the Patriot Javelins 40 grains. And so the results I'm getting are pretty darn awesome with these things. Check this out. We've got 100 yards of shipping containers. We zeroed this thing. Ernest, what was that, 25 yards?
25, yeah.
25 yards at the shop.
With the
Dude, yeah. Dude, that's what I'm talking about right there, man. Let's go check this out.
There you go.
Dude, come on, man. And this right here was like the last four right here. And after a little bit of tinkering with the harmonic tuner, we were able to bust out this 10-shot group and quite a few more just like this one.
One of the cool things I wanted to test in this entire series is the differences in barrel length with powder burners, specifically in the 22 LR, as compared to air guns. So on my channel, you've heard me talk a lot about this. For every inch of barrel that you add, you're gaining sometimes between 10 to 15 feet per second, depending on caliber, depending on pressure, but roughly that 10 to 15 feet per second for every additional inch of barrel length that you have. So the difference between an air gun and a firearm is after about 20 inches. So in a lot of the research that I've been doing, I've talked to a couple different shooters, and what I found is after 20 inches of barrel length, they start losing velocity quite rapidly. In 22 LR, some of the bench rest guys, they actually choose to use a little bit of a longer barrel beyond 20 inches. And what they have found is the standard deviations and extreme spreads of their velocities actually get a bit tighter, but they're losing velocity. So what we've found with air guns, as we extend the barrel length, what's interesting is we're actually increasing velocity and we're tightening up our standard deviations and extreme spreads of velocity. And also, as we get longer barrel lengths, the sound report, the shot report, actually gets quieter. So the difference between firearms and air guns, especially in the 22, and again, we're going to choose the same caliber for both, it's quite interesting that in air guns, you're getting best of both worlds as you're increasing that barrel length. So I've heard the comment in some of the forums and on social media about this idea that maybe going to an 800 millimeter barrel is going to be way too long. So the purchase that I made actually was very intentional. I chose to go with a 16.5 inch barrel in the Pro Varmint with the CZ457. And the reason being is when I actually looked at the size or the overall length of the platform in the CZ457 with a 16.5 inch barrel is almost exactly the same length as the 700 millimeter barrel in the FX Impact M3. And so when we add that additional length with the 800 millimeter barrel, that's roughly adding roughly 4 more inches to the barrel length, which is then equivalent to a 20 inch barrel on a 22 LR. So when you look at what barrel sizes a lot of the competitive shooters are doing in NRL 22, PRS, they're typically running in that 18 inch to 20 inch size. So in the FX Impact platform, often when we think of the 700 millimeter barrel length and now the new coming 800 millimeter barrel length, a lot of people are like, oh, that's way too long. Well, if you look at this, 700 millimeters is exactly the same length as a 16.5 inch barrel. So for me, I have absolutely no problem. I'm actually quite excited about moving up to the 800 millimeter barrel length. And quite honestly, I may actually swap out the 16.5 inch barrel on the 22 and move it out to a 20 inch. So we always will have a head-to-head comparison. All right, so let's head out to the range and do some shooting. A quick caveat though, this is probably gonna be the worst shooting conditions that I've had this year. It's roughly about 10 degrees, might warm up to 15 degrees today. So in all my research, I have read that 22 LR really does not like the cold. We might see some fluctuations in velocity. And then also moisture control with the FX Impact M3 coming off of my compressor. I haven't been using a really good moisture control device. I definitely have one now from Air Venturi. I'll be hooking that up. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Here we go. All right, so heading to my favorite shooting spot here at the dead end of a Jeep trail. And we're gonna be doing some extreme testing because it is 12 degrees outside. So here we go. All right, so let's do some velocity testing here. We got the FX pocket chronograph set up. And since these are below 1100 feet per second, the FX chronograph will work with this since it's all subsonic. So we're shooting the Lapua Midas Plus. Let's do a 10 shot string and see what kind of standard deviations and extreme spreads we get. Here we go. All right, there it is. So not very good. Again, but in talking to a lot of 22 LR precision shooters, what's going on here is with this cold weather, we're getting some inconsistent powder burns with the combination of that primer and the powder. And potentially with the 16-inch barrel, potentially not getting a full powder burn. I've also heard that 18 and 20-inch barrels will ensure that. So again, worst case scenario conditions out here. being 10 degrees. So yeah, let's try the FX Impact M3. Let's see what we do with that. All right, so next up we got the FX Impact M3. Going to be doing some velocity testing. We've got it loaded up with the 40 grain javelins, and this is a custom lid, so the 40 grains will actually fit into the magazine. So one thing that I have learned, and I've been trying to mitigate this as much as possible, is out here in my early testing with this is moisture issues. You really want to make sure you can cancel out as much of that moisture in your air gun and in your bottle as much as possible. What I'm noticing gets a little bit inconsistent, and I really think that's from that moisture crystallization that's happening inside the bottle, inside both of your regulators, and then into the plenum, and just really causing a lot of havoc on your shot cycle. And we've also noticed as I shoot quickly, the side of the block here gets really frosted up. So again, in extreme conditions, but let's see what kind of shot string we can get. Here we go. All right, here we go, 10 shots. All right, so let's look at the graph here, and notice we've got an extreme spread of 14, standard deviation of 5.3. In the summertime, or basically the non-cold months, I can get that below 10, well below 10 for extreme spread, standard deviations in the 2 to 3 feet per second range. So I'm gonna try a little bit more tuning with this, try to tighten that up. But what I'm finding is just this cold weather is really kind of, wreaking havoc on this. And I've noticed this with a lot of my other regulated air guns. It's just those springs get cold. If you have any moisture in your tank, you really got to try to control that. So again, worst case conditions for both the 22 LR and the FX Impact M3. Well, I will say though, is even in these really horrible conditions, basically my extreme spread and my standard deviations on the M3 are twice as good as a 22 LR.
All right, so this next section, I'm not going to bore you with all the testing, but this is literally the embodiment of about 5 days of shooting ammunition. That's every bit of 22 LR that I could get my hands on over the course of a week through just local stores, people that I knew here, locally here in town that had some cheap stuff, mid-grade stuff, expensive stuff. I was able to get some really premium stuff at Sportsman's Warehouse in 22 LR, some of the Lapua stuff. But I will tell you, it took me a long time to find anything that could come even close to shooting as good as my FX Impact. And that really came down to, basically I'm finding anything from Lapua is really holding super, super tight. But in this gun, I haven't found anything that it likes from CCI, any of the other manufacturers. So definitely need to be able to source some more ammo, maybe from SK or Ely. But from this testing and what I could get my hands on in this short amount of time, the Lapua was the best I could find. So let's check that out. Oh, a really good one going there, but yeah, go check it out. All right, so my tuning is completely different than it was when it was 70 degrees out here. And now that it's 10 degrees, all right, let's go in that upper left X. See what we got. All right. Next group. All right. Really good.
really good grip right there. All right, last one. All right, let's go check it out.
All right, so there we go. There's always that one darn flyer. But even with that flyer, we're at 0.53 at 50 yards, which is just a touch over a minute of angle. So if we were to throw that one out, it's going to put us sub MOA. So again, with the Lapua Midas pluses, we were also printing in those 0.4s. So in these conditions, I'm going to call that a success. I will say with the Patriot Javelin 40 grains, hands down shot better than the vast majority of all the other 22 LR ammo that I've tried so far, except for the Lapuas. So it's definitely hanging with the most premium ammunition in the 22 LR. But again, that stuff is $20 a box for 50 shots as compared to the Patriot Javelins, which is what, like 25 bucks for 200 shots. So hanging pretty darn close. I would definitely say there's a lot of bang for your buck there with these Patriot Javelins. So let's go ahead and put these head to head with the Know Your Limit spinners. Let's check it out.
50 yards, we're gonna go head to head with the FX Impact M3. Then we're gonna switch over to the CZ457. So see what we can do. All right, quick little pro tip. When you get your shootingtarget7.com, Know Your Limit spinners, don't shoot that part of it. It messes up the swinging mechanism. All right, now we've got the CZ457 set up with the Lapuas. We're gonna set the camera up down there at the Know Your Limit spinners and let's see what we can do. All right, so there it is. Head to head, clear it both with the M3 and the CZ457, 50 yards. So all the way down to 1/4 of an inch. Man, both those guns are some serious shooters. All right, so what did we learn from this testing today? A couple different things. One, both of these rifles are extremely awesome shooters. One thing I will say is having that controllability of my velocity with the FX Impact M3, being able to tweak it a little bit, kind of move the velocity up and down, really is a game changer. And I was really at, what, 14 spread and a 5 point something standard deviation, which is twice as good as that powder ammo. So, you know, that's kind of where the FX Impact M3 shines against a powder burner. That adjustability, you just can't beat it. But this 50-yard testing, it's pretty darn close. More testing to be done. So I'll tell you what, this early testing, the M3 is hanging right there with that Precision 22 LR. Thanks everybody for joining me. Take care.